Welcome to the channel, guys. It's your boy JT, and in today's video, we're getting ready to talk about the video scopes in DaVinci Resolve. I know it can be intimidating at first glance, but I promise you, this is simply a tool. It allows you to control your exposure, your color, your saturation. It allows you to be able to control your output levels for whatever the delivery that you're going to actually be required to do for your particular project. So we want to get next to these scopes. We don't want to run from them, and I'm going to make sure today that you at least will have a general knowledge of what each one of these scopes are supposed to do for you and what they could mean for your project. Let's jump into these video scopes. Okay guys, now we're back into the DaVinci Resolve software and we're actually inside of the color page. So remember how we got there, but no, I'm gonna take you back so we can go back to the edit page first. Then we're gonna jump in there. So we're gonna come down here to where our edit page is. And I just got a couple of clips in here just because I wanna be able to show you some different things as far as on the color page and being able to use the scopes. All right, so just got 4 clips here. We're going to kind of pick and choose. They're really random. They're just kind of over here in the section I pulled out of some B-roll clips. So we're just going to make sure that we can kind of give you a well-rounded explanation without it being confusing, something you can be able to go back to and refer to step by step, whatever it is that you need that has to do with these video scopes, man. So let's go ahead and go over here to our color tab on the bottom. It says color. It looks like a little color wheel. And once we click on that, you're gonna see you'll be in your color page and you'll see all of the items on the color page. Now, I did a video that you can go back and refer to if you want to be able to go through and just kind of find the different sections of the color page to allow you to use the tools that you'll need. So watch this. I'm not getting ready to speed through this. Like I said, if you're looking for a 15-second reel to teach you the color page, this is not the channel for you, period. So, but I probably won't go through and explain every little bit about this color page because we've already done a tutorial for that. And so I'll make sure that I drop something in here where you can be able to quickly reference it. But I will go through and I will try to make sure that I don't miss explaining something to you, okay? So I won't go super slow, but I promise you I'm not going to go too fast. Now, remember we have our clips and stuff over here, but right now I already have these clips that we're just going to kind of use. We've got like our most used tools here, and then we have our primary color wheels here. Now this is the area for where the scopes are, and I'm actually doing this tutorial right now on a MacBook, so it doesn't like separate everything out quite yet, but let's see something. All right, yeah, that's it. So in other words, the display is not wide enough for it to show the primary wheels, the curves, and the actual scopes. But if we want a larger display, it would actually show all those at once. So I don't want you to feel like what you're looking at is different from what I'm looking at. I'm just throwing that information out there for you. It's only because I'm on this Mac now. If I was on my deal with my extra monitor over here, you could do a lot of things. Oh, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I love to do when I'm working in the color page is I like to have my dual monitor set up because you can actually use, here, look at this. You see where it says workspace? You can actually come over here and where you're saying, let me see. Oh, you can't see it because it's grayed out because I'm not on a dual monitor right now. It's over there. But right here, it'll say dual screen, right? You can actually set it up to where only your timeline will appear on your second monitor. Okay, you can switch which monitor you want for your primary or your main display, and the same thing for the color panel. You can actually have different section of the user interface within the color page or your edit page or whichever page, including your fusion page, where you can have it on separate monitors, and that just gives you a little more real estate to be able to work with. So I just want to throw that out there as just a little side note. But there's a menu right here. It says dual screen. You see it right there? Again, it's grayed out because I'm on my MacBook and it's not connected to the other second monitor. But will tell you is that if you have a MacBook, you can also, you have a MacBook and an iPad, you can also, what is it called? Where you can share or mirror the display from your MacBook over to your iPad. That way, if you want to put another window over there, you can. So one of the things you can do is you can put your color wheels, you can put your scopes over there. That way you can still be able to have as much space that you want on your actual other display. So I could still do it. We're not gonna do that. This is a video about scopes. So see, I said I was gonna keep it short or shorter, but this is just not gonna be one of those video shorts. So anyway, one of the things that I want you to know is that when looking at these scopes, probably the main part of the scope that you want to be able to pay attention to at first is going to be the trace. Now, the trace is basically the part of the image that really hones in on the distribution of pixels for your image. It's like that's where the main body of your image is living at. Okay, so it is measuring the light and colors within that actual image. All right, so as you can see, and I want you to pay attention. Pay attention. Like you see this area here, right? That kind of represents the actual image. So you can look at that. Everything else is kind of some other information. It's kind of, as far as the highlights, as far as the shadows, but that trace is the main part of that scope that you really want to be able to pay attention to. Okay, so as you can see, it's just right there. It's not up and down. It's not all over the place because this is shot on a camera that allows you to shoot in a log format. All right, so it's a flat image right now, but remember how in the other videos we went in and we were able to create a couple of base grades and power grades, and one of the things I said was once you created those, you could literally save them and then just kind of give yourself a head start instead of having to go in and reset up all of the nodes for every little thing that you're going to do. This is where you kind of get to benefit. You have different changes and choices you can do. You see how I can hover over that and it shows me that with my Blackmagic base grade that I already have, that this is what it would look like for my own conversion. Now, once I do that, I can go in and begin to individually make adjustments to those different nodes that do different things for the image. So same thing. Well, this is just an empty one right here. See, it says base grade. That's just kind of how I have it set up over here for myself. And you have another one and another one. And you'll get different ones because if you create different base grades, then you just have different looks. So now, this is what I'm going to show you how to do here. We're going to come on over here to the scope section. You see this right here? This is where our scopes are. In order for you to change this, you just click on here and it'll show you all the different scopes that you have. So right now we're on the waveform. Now, the waveform, I'm going to pop this out. Now, right here, this is the settings for whatever scope you have active. This is how you open the window that will show your scopes in a much larger view. All right. So now, right here, I'm still on the waveform. I'm looking just at a single display. You see, here's my trace. This trace really represents the main part of the image. This is where we want to kind of focus most of our controls. When you see things like this, that means there's clearly something obvious in your scene that's happening. Like, there's a lot of space between here and here, but it's kind of unrealistic for an overall full image. That has to be something like it could be a can light, it could be a light that was, that's in the scene that you just really don't have control over, but that's what that is. Those are not abnormalities, but they're really not part of this actual main trace. You can also look here on your graph or your chart, and you can see kind of where your exposure lies. So now you can also say, okay, depending on the skin type, the skin color, where this really should be from the beginning. All right, this right here, I'm going to say would kind of be a little bit on the underexposed side because our trace is down here almost like between 128 and 250. So that's going to be, like I said, a bit on the underexposed side. This is how you can read the trace. Everything else is just additional information. But I will tell you this, okay? On the waveform, you've got from 0 to 1023. When your waveform information begins to approach here, that means you are approaching clipping. Okay, that's where you begin to lose the ability to see things in the highlights. When your waveform begins to approach the 0 line, then you're also beginning to clip in the shadows. That's where you begin to lose information in those shadows. Let me give you a very, very, very easy way for you to understand what that means. Because I remember at first I just say clipping. What the heck is clipping? All right. Here's one of the best ways I can explain it to you. You know how, like, if you go outside, well, number one, a camera, and all cameras aren't made equal. You have to do different things to help, strengthen certain characteristics of a camera to give an equal image to another one. I'm gonna make that make sense for you, I promise. So, like if you're outside, let's say you're outside and you look down on the ground and there's a tree over here or a pole or anything that'll cast a shadow. If you look at that ground, if there's a shadow, you're going to be able to see whatever's beneath that shadow. If it's gravel, if it's grass, if it's shoes, or whatever it is, you'll be able to see what's underneath that shadow. It'll just look like some kind of an overlay. Now, how can we relate that over to what we're looking at on this waveform? If you're clipping that same picture that you just took of a shadow, you won't be able to see those grass blades or the gravel or the rocks or the concrete. It'll just be black. Okay. Now, the same thing in the highlights. When you look in the sky, for the most part, you can see the patterns of the sky. If you are clipping in your image, you'll look up, it'll just be white. You won't be able to see the actual patterns of the clouds, right? That's what we mean by clipping. Even on a bright day, when you can look up in the sky with your natural eyes, you can see the clouds and the patterns of the clouds. Your eyes aren't going to allow them to clip. When you look at the ground, you can see the concrete, you can see the rocks, you can see the cement, you can see the grass blades. You can see those details even though they're in the shadows. So watch this. All cameras can't do that. Okay? You being able to look at this waveform meter, and you can see that when your image begins to approach that bottom line or that top line, you're going to pretty much guarantee that now your viewer, your audience, when they're looking at your films, they won't be able to see it. So you don't want to hit that line unless creatively that's what you're trying to do. So I had to put that out there because there really aren't any rules, especially when you're creating this thing. A lot of times there's requirements. Because if you're trying to put it on TV, or if you have a client who wants to see that, then those are your requirements. So you do have to do it. But if it's just for you, your own personal deal, hey, make it be what you make it be. Now, there's some cameras that have a wider dynamic range than others. They have more dynamic range than other cameras. Some cameras have more dynamic range than others. It's just the best way to say it. So certain cameras, you can actually be able to push the limits of exposure so that you can shoot a little bit more underexposed and still be able to see the details beneath those shadows and the details within those highlights. And then those will be probably more of your 10-bit and up cameras. Your 8-bit cameras, hey, you gotta try to nail that joker, because if you don't, you're not gonna see jack. And it's really, really difficult to recover them even in post-edit. So you'd have to do other things like introduce more light or, repositioning your angles to be able to add in more natural light, or however you do it. But you'll be able to see that when you come into the color page and begin to see your scopes, because the scopes are not going to lie to you. That's pretty much it. This is what these scopes are allowing you to do. So right here, we've got an image that we have selected, and so it gives us our trace. it also gives us where we are. So you see this distance between the bottom of the trace and the zero line. That's how much room we have before we actually begin to clip. And then when that happens, you just won't be able to see anything in the shadow. So we don't want to push it beyond that point. We could, but we don't want to. The same thing for our highlights. Our trace is here, but this lets you see just how much room and space we have. So that's how I know that this is shot a little underexposed. Okay, let's click on another one. Same thing here. And even when you look here, you can see that that just over here in this area, that's kind of what this represents, you know. And it too, just down here in the shadows, we've still got some room where we can be able to expand and open this image out to breathe even more, to bring in even more detail within the shadows areas. But that's going to be a creative decision. Okay, here's another. And if you look at the actual look at the scope, it holds true. You see what I'm saying? You see how we have our trace information here, and look right here. This would definitely be our subject. You see how much brighter it is right here. Look at how much brighter it is right there. But look everywhere else. You see, it's definitely beginning to approach the area of underexposed. We can even zoom in there. I mean, this is shot in the black magic, so I mean, it's got a very good dynamic range on it. But this was just actually shot in a dark place. It was in a studio booth. So that's just what it is. Now, these 3 images were shot on a 10-bit camera. Okay. And we definitely have some room to play. They're raw files, so we can even go in and increase the ISO to be able to add a little bit more exposure if that's what we want to do. But that's not what this tutorial is about. We're talking about the scopes. So now here is an image that was shot on an 8-bit camera. You see that area back there? Oh, it's gone. You see, look down here. You can see where the trace information is, so that lets us know. I'm gonna say like right here, where it just kind of goes from here and just begins to jump up. That's this area right here. Same way. And that's me. That's your boy. All right. So, and then you can even see over here where, okay, you've got a little more information over here, and that's this area. So this is how you can read the trace information within your scopes. And ironically, it's pretty much going to be the same way for all of them, but we are getting ready to go through these scopes so that you'll be able to have an understanding and also kind of see which ones will benefit you the most. So with your waveform, like I said, it does it measures the light and color of the pixels of the trace for you. It allows you to be able to see, and you read it from, you read the trace from left to right, but then you also read the trace for exposure from top to bottom, up and down. Okay, let's come back over here. We've got one that's a little bit more wide open. All right, so this is our waveform scope. Now let's go over here to our parade. Okay, now the parade scope is a scope that's used for color balance, and also it gives you the ability to be able to white balance, because when you have equal red, equal green, equal blue, you get white. Okay, now so if you wanted to come in and manually make adjustments to your white balance, then you would need to put your best effort in to get your shadows all lined up. We can see here that there's the blue is all the way down to the 128 line, but the red and the green are pretty much equal above that. So if we brought all of them down, we'd be pretty much white balanced here. We can see that there's just a little bit of the highlight area that's up higher than the red. So it begins to become a deal of push and pull. And this is something that you would want to do before you really begin to do other things like add LUTs or begin to do any other kind of color work, because you want to make sure that you're working from an image that is about as neutrally solid as possible. That's in the beginning, okay? And right now, this is where we live. We live here in the beginning, okay? This is why I want to be able to take you through these, because I don't want you to be intimidated. Now, if you have a question about any one of these, please drop that question in the comments. As soon as I get that notification, I'm gonna come in and answer. I don't care what I'm doing. So Now, and then also, again, like I said, you can measure your color. So if you want to come in and balance your colors out, this is one of the things that you can do. You can come in and you can make your adjustments in a lot of different kind of ways. And we're going to save doing that for another tutorial, but I want to show you what these different scopes will actually show you so that you can learn how to read these scopes. When you pull up a scope like this, you can say, okay, we're a little higher in our blues. And honestly, if I come in right now, I'll just come in here over in my offset, because I want to remove some of the blue in my highlights, right? When I begin to do that, watch what happens. I'm gonna do it a lot. You see how the green is higher than the red, and so when I drop that blue, you can see that you see more of that green in the highlight areas than you do the red, right? So let's bring that. I'm gonna bring that back up. Now let's bring this green down a little bit. See, now we're beginning to get that reddish, bluish look. Okay, let's bring this the red down. You see, now we're back up at where the blue is, because the blue is the one that is the strongest in the highlights. This thing really does become like a push and pull deal. But what I want you to know is that on these primary wheels, on the offset, if you begin to lower or raise any one of these, it's going to do it for the total image. Okay, it's not going to do it just for the highlights, just for the midtones, just for the shadows. This is going to do it for the total image. You see, I can come in here and it's going to, whatever it is, watch this. Whatever, this is back at it original. So if I begin to raise this, you see it's going to raise everything. It's not going to isolate anything. It's just going to raise it all. Okay, that's that wheel right there. Now the same thing for here. If I do this, it's going to raise and lower all parts of the blue highlights, the blue midtones, and the blue shadows. That's what it's going to do. The same for the green, same for the red. Okay, I'm going to reset this. Okay, now this is where you can begin to make those other individual adjustments. But like I said, we're not getting ready to do any color correction. We just want to explain to you how the scopes work. Okay, now I'm going to go from, we've done our waveform, which is what I always use for my exposure. Okay, I'm checking my exposure, I'm checking my shadows, I'm checking my highlights, my midtones. If I need to make any adjustments on that, that's what I'm going to be looking at the entire time to evaluate my image. We're going to go now to Vectorscope. All right, so check this out. A lot of people don't like using the Vectorscope, or they just don't use it. I mean, it's not that it's intimidating, but it just doesn't look like it does a lot. Right now, there's not a lot of color information in here. That's the reason why it's like this. So, first, what I'll do is I'm going to really explain to you about the Vectorscope. As a matter of fact, I know how we can get some color information. Bam. I just threw that 8-bit image on there because that color is baked in. That's pretty much it. So, on your Vectorscope is going to help you to manage and evaluate the hue within your colors. And so by hue, we mean the strength of your colors, whether that be, how red something is, or how off red something is, or how strongly saturated that red is. Okay, so now on your scope, there's a couple different things you can do. Like for this one, let's say we want to check our skin tone line. We can come in our settings here. We can put a check mark in for the skin tone indicator. And then you'll see this skin tone line here. If we were correcting for skin tone, we would just make sure that our skin tone colors are on this line. That's how we know we have true skin tone colors, okay? About as true as it's gonna get. Now, you see the red, blue, yellow, green, cyan, and magenta. Those are where, and I like to look at this little spot right here in the middle of that box. Anytime I have an image that has a lot of color in there, I'm just making sure, because if I want my image to have its strongest color presence, I'm just making sure that my color approaches right here in front of this box, but never goes past the center of that box. Okay. Why is that important? Well, I mean, if, hey, what if something would have happened and your stuff ended up on TV? whatever. I mean, broadcast wise, you want to make sure that those colors fall within it. Otherwise, it's it's too saturated. It'd be too saturated. It wouldn't look the same on everybody's TV for a broadcast. And then also, you just don't want a red that's supposed to be a red to look like, Superman red or, whatever. Just too saturated. I don't know the word for it, but too saturated. So now, what if you have something that, we'll say, like, let's say you have a color that's here, but it really, because also remember, like right here in the center would really tell you exactly where that particular color needed to be. So let's say you have some red and it's like right along here, and you're just like, man, that red just isn't red enough. You can make the adjustments to that red to make it to where it can move and approach closer and closer to the center of this box, so that way your red can actually be red. Because remember, this right here is how you are able to see the hue of your color, okay? And you can see the saturation. If you want something that's yellow, but that yellow is over here, that means you're not really getting yellow. When you begin to make it move more towards this yellow box over here, look over here, stay with me, that's where you'll know you have yellow. And the same for green, cyan, blue, magenta. This is how you use the Vectorscope. So right now, when I come here, and this is me just kind of, being able to make sure, let's say I want to make sure even though my skin tone here is cool, that's what I look like, but even though my skin tone there is cool, you can go in here, all right? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, let's say red. We're going to pick the reds, right? And you see how that deal is moving? Look on your Vectorscope. You see how that's moving? I went in, I added a node, and now I can begin to make a change that it'll actually recognize. So I just threw a window up, and any change I make is only going to impact what's in that window. All right. Now, just want to make sure that you understood what happened there. So I'm kind of glad that happened, because that allowed me to give you another point. All right. So right here, I just came down here and I clicked on the red button. So this is where my red is. You see this open circle? That's the one that we're looking at. I can increase, we'll say the saturation. When I raise it up, it's going to begin to do stuff. All right, you see that all the way over. We'll bring it down. You see how it's moving? You see that little hand? You see how it's moving away from red? It's yellow. It's going down to green. It's going down to cyan. Now it's well, not that part, not all the way blue, but this is what we're gonna do. Okay, right now, you see how it's going towards green? That's the reason why my face is green. Okay, let's pick another color. You see, look at the blue. See, there's not a lot of blue in there to be able to do that, but you get the point. You get the point. When you begin to make these changes or whatever, let me see here. I'll pick. Let's see what it'll do it now. It's moving subtly, but not a lot. So we'll go back. Red, that's the one that's kind of prominent. You can't magic the colors up. If it's too far away, it's just too far away. Okay, you see that? When I begin to go up, it's all the way actually in at the 90-degree marks. It's heading over towards magenta. See how it's going over there towards magenta, but then that's where it is on my graph down here in my curve also. Okay, and then it's going all the way over to blue. There we go. Okay, so that is how you would use the Vectorscope. You can use it to be able to measure it. See, right now I'm back on green because I'm pulling that red away. And the more I pull it down, the more that green is going to come through. Because remember, on our RGB graph, when you remove that red, the green and the blue is what's going to be prominent, right? And when you remove that green, the blue and the red is what's going to be prominent. And when you remove that blue, the red and the green is going to be what's prominent. And so we already know that red and green makes a color. We know that blue and red makes a color. We know that blue and green makes a color. So that's what you're going to get. This is how you use that Vectorscope. Because when you want to narrow in on your skin tones, sometimes when you shoot, you might have some color cast coming from somewhere else, and this is how you're able to look and see what it is that you're doing. So I hope that explained that good enough to you guys. If not, drop a question in the comments, and then we'll come back and retouch it again. So let's see. Now we'll go now to the histogram. Love the histogram. I remember that was one of the first videos that I actually did over like some of the different specifics that you can do when it comes to how to get good exposure on your camera. Histogram is another way that you are able to measure your exposure. Now you see how right now, and you read the histogram from left to right. Okay, the same way it was in the waveform where the 0 was on the bottom and the 1023 was at the top. You see how on this it's heavy red. You know, that's because of what we see now. And then the green and the blue are pretty much balanced. You know, they're pretty much equal. We can see that there's much more red in this image than there is green and blue. Now, the one thing you will see is you see the 0 line. These are absolutely touching on this left wall. So what do we know about when it's touching on that wall, or that line right there, that limit? We know that we're going to begin to clip. We know that we're going to be underexposed. So on your 0 side, that represents your shadows. On the right side, the 1023, that represents the highlights. We don't really have a lot of highlights in here, but for the highlights we do have, we can see that those highlights are in red, and it's approaching over more towards this way than anything else. All right. So what are some things we could do to fix that? I mean, watch. I'm gonna add some shadow. Watch our histogram. I'm gonna add some lift. Oh, let me get off of here. Let me delete that. There we go. All right. Now, so right over here, see how when we add some lift, it begins to pull you away from that wall. There begins to be a point where, let's see. Okay. So right now we're not clipping anymore. It is still, you know, low key, and it is still, you know, kind of, it is still pretty underexposed over there, but it's not clipping. Remember, at first, watch this. There we go. You see how black it is over there? You don't know what that just looks like a shape. But when you begin to add some lift in, you begin to move some space and open that image out a little more. But like I said, this is also shot with an 8-bit camera. What you get is what you get. You can't do a lot to it without tearing that image up. But as you can see, the further away from that wall we move, the more information that you can actually get. Okay, but that's the camera, that's the software digitally enhancing whatever light that it could find. So let's pull out our middle sun. We're opening it up more, as you can see more. Now let's add some more in our highlights. So, you know, we've got a completely different image now. You know, a lot of people might say, well, you know what, I like that better. Well, I don't. That's just that. There's not a lot of contrast. I'm not going to do a whole lot. For me, and if you have an 8-bit camera, I want you to listen to this. For me, when it comes to using my 8-bit camera, believe it or not, it actually, in my opinion, it actually makes you a better filmmaker. It makes you a better photographer. It makes you a better videographer. It makes you a better planner. It puts you in a position where you really get a chance to learn a lot more, because whereas your 8-bit camera that doesn't have or allow you to shoot in a log or a raw video format, you have to be almost dead spot on when it comes to your lighting setup if you want to make sure you avoid having issues like this. Well, why do you say that, JT? Because you usually will have a histogram on your camera, so you can just open that histogram out. Hey, when you're lighting everything up, as long as your histogram ain't hitting that wall on the left or the right, you'll be properly exposed. That means that in post, you'll have room where you can push and pull a little bit without completely destroying your image. So that's pretty much what I mean. I like to try to light, even with my little 8-bit camera that I use for just simple content. I like to light to where when I can look and see areas of the image that are underexposed, just add a light. That's what you do. You just add a light. It's not always just about, man, can I get this completely stark contrasty image? It's about, you being able to give yourself the room to play, give yourself the room to have more control. Even right now with this image, with as much as you can see right now in the background of that image that you couldn't see before, and you can see a lot more, it just doesn't have that same crisp and clarity that it had initially. But I just happen to like that look. You don't have to like it. Nobody else has to like it but me. It's, part of my own creative expression. But again, this is more about the scopes, okay? But this is how you use the histogram. Simple rule, you're going from left to right, and the closer you are to that wall, the more information you lose because you're getting ready to be underexposed completely. And the further you are away from that wall, the more information you lose in the highlights because, again, you're approaching the area where you just can't get enough detailed information out of those highlights. The more you approach it, the less you'll be able to see. And the better the specs on your camera in terms of dynamic range, the more you'll be able to see even as you approach either the left or the right. That's how you use the histogram. All right, now let's go on to the next one. We're about to get ready to wrap it up. CIE chromaticity. Now this one, okay, so, can you see this? You should be able to see this. Right here it says Rec 709, right? This one is a little more advanced, but it's simple. It really is simple. This one is a little more advanced, but it is simple. So you have different delivery formats, and within those different delivery formats, it kind of determines how you want to make sure your color information is able to fall within the graph, okay? If you're doing something with broadcast, standard broadcast is Rec 709. So this shows the amount of color information, and as long as it stays within the boundaries of that graph, you're good. Now, there is an sRGB, which is mainly for, say, like internet, social media type stuff. It'll also have its own CIE graph, but you can use this to evaluate whether or not your delivery file will be acceptable. But that's always on a case-by-case scenario. It's always on a need-based scenario, and you'll know that up front. Like if you have a project and your project is going to require a certain type of a delivery format, then you'll know to make sure that you have that inside of your node structure, so you can make sure that the color information is aligned with what your customer or your requirement is. And so, there's a difference for broadcast, there's a difference for online, and there's even a difference for websites. And so, that's going to kind of be some information that you'll need to know. But I'm going to say, as a beginner, if that's not the line that you're in right now, you don't have to go ham on trying to figure this part out. We can always get you some standards and let you see those. But that's how I would explain it, because that's how I understand it. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can set different gammas in we hadn't even got to stuff like color space transform, but you can set your different gamma levels in there, which also will allow you to, in your color space transformer node, you can set your gammas up. You can also set your output up as to what delivery format that you want to be able to have your output come to, and it'll render to that format. So that's that. Now, the other thing over here on the scopes, like you see here, we have one scope. This is just a single. We could have two. Chromaticity, let's see. I'm going to say waveform. Wait a minute. Yeah, for some, what? I think it may actually be because of the streaming software, because these should be available to us. This is the first time I've actually seen that, but I can also see that it is grayed out right here let me see, yeah. So even right here, it should just be an X, but I think that's just something happening with the the streaming software, because where it would normally be at, this is where it's actually where the streaming software is controlling the scope window. So what I'll say is, you can be able to open it up, and if you're not streaming, you should be able to see the 2 scopes or the 4 scopes, or you'll be able to see the 9 view. So there's a 9 view, there's a quad view, and then there's a double view. Right now we're just on the single view. So I imagine if I didn't have the streaming software up, then I'd be able to do the 9 view or the quad view or the double view. That's a first. So, but anyway, well guys, look, those are your scopes. Hopefully I've been able to give you some more understanding on them. We're going to do in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put the waveform scope to work, and we'll do the parade scope, and then we'll also do the histogram. We'll show you some differences on the CIE with different delivery requirements, and we'll just keep this thing going, guys. So this way, I want you to be able to have just a list of resources where you can just stay. You can get whatever it is you need without someone just running through it to get on to the end of the video to hit upload. I want to make sure that you're able to get exactly what you need to get out of these. So if you have any questions, feel free, like I said, to drop a comment. Hey, I'm an open book. You can follow me on social media and reach out to me. I mean, I'm definitely not, so big time that I can't answer a DM. So yeah, hey, I appreciate you guys for coming. Look, we hit 500 subscribers. I'm thrilled. I was up 6:30 this morning. I looked at my phone. I was like, man, we hit 500 subscribers. And so it says to me that the audience that I want to talk to and be able to be of value to and to be able to speak to and help is I made a good choice, So I'm glad that you guys are getting something from these videos. I'm glad that you guys are able to learn, and you feel comfortable enough to spend this time with me. So yeah, I'm glad that you guys are, that you feel comfortable enough to spend this time with me, and I'm glad I'm able to add some added value to you and your content creation. If you are new here, hey, look, this is how we do it. It's not a short video channel, because I don't think you can teach the color page in 30 seconds. So regardless of getting the views or not, if I can help the people who come that are actually looking for that help, because that's the only way you're going to find me, is if you're actually looking for this content. And at that point, it's just on me to deliver. So, hey, if you're enjoying the way that I'm bringing these different lessons, hey, feel free to drop a line and let me know if there's something very specific that you're looking for that you still hadn't heard on any of these videos. Just hit me up. I'm not hard to find. So look, hopefully I brought some added value to you in your content creation. If you did enjoy the video, feel free to subscribe. Come and become a part of this community that we're getting ready to build. And I promise you, we've got a lot more coming. Got a lot more coming. Look, the things that I know now that I didn't know when I first started, I'm going to impart that wisdom upon all of you guys. And we're going to have a ball while we're doing it. So tell you what, open those scopes, open some images, open the scopes, play around with it, see what you got. See what you need further instruction on, and holler at your boy. We're going to be on to the next video.